Welcome to Guns, Gear, and Guns with Gary Gunderson. I am Gary Gunderson. Connecticut's governor just signed a gun control bill increasing restrictions in the already heavily restrictive state. It already had an assault weapons ban, a magazine capacity limit, and universal background checks. You know, all the things gun control advocates argue are needed to solve gun violence, but this is apparently not enough, because it never will be. The governor said that laws have not kept up with the innovative ways firearms companies are manufacturing guns, especially those designed with the sole intention of killing the largest number of people possible in the shortest amount of time, which is a nonsense statement and not really addressed by this bill. Among the most important changes is a complete ban on open carry outside your personal property or business, even though the state requires permit numbers for any firearm sale, even private ones, so everyone who has a firearm legally will have gone through background checks, but I guess that is irrelevant. It effectively bans so-called ghost guns by requiring any firearm without a serial number to have one engraved, or you can fill out a form declaring possession of such firearms. That is presumably so you don't have to inscribe serial numbers on old firearms that never had them to begin with. It limits pistol purchases to just 3 in a 30-day period, unless you are an NRA instructor, which strangely gets to purchase 6 every 30 days. For a gun control bill, this does mention the NRA several times by name, both here and in new training requirements, which is odd because the NRA is not a part of the government, and there can certainly be instructors certified by other prominent and better firearms organizations. But F them, I guess, no exceptions unless it's the NRA. Of course, they build in exclusions for law enforcement. If you return your pistol you purchased and exchange it or buy another one, or donate several at once to a museum. And believe it or not, this was worse before the amendments. The initial proposed bill only allowed 1 pistol every 30 days. It bans long gun sales to anyone under 21 if it's a centerfire rifle that can accept more than 5 rounds, because no one can be killed with only 5 rounds, and though 18-year-olds can vote and serve in the military, they are not mature enough to exercise their other rights. Firearms sellers must maintain additional records apart from the federally required ones, and these state records must be available to federal investigators such as the ATF. Given there are no private sales without getting authorization, this is essentially a scattered yet complete gun registry. Trigger locks are required with the sale of every firearm, which was previously required for just pistols. And you need to include language telling you to safely store your firearm or suffer legal consequences. Speaking of those consequences, they amended the safe storage laws already in place, so that if you have your firearm out on the table and go to the restroom, that's a crime, because at all times, your firearms must be locked up in a securely locked box or container, or must be within such close proximity that you can readily retrieve and use the firearm as if it were on your person. Technically, walking across the living room could be considered unsafe storage based on their definition of readily retrievable. The safe storage law used to be specifically for minors taking firearms without permission, usually in your home, but now it's anybody. So if anyone grabs a firearm not readily in reach or reasonably locked up, you are held responsible. Connecticut already had an extensive assault weapons ban, but they have expanded that, as previously firearms made before the national assault weapon ban passed in 1994 were still allowed to be bought and sold within the state. Now those grandfathered in firearms are grandpappies no longer and must be declared as in your possession and they cannot be sold to any other individuals within the state. But they are so generous and will allow you to transport these suddenly dangerous firearms to gun dealers so they can sell them outside of the state, and you don't need a permit to do that, as long as you don't take too long to do so. The law has defined large capacity magazines as magazines holding more than 10 rounds since 2013, but initially, if you already owned one before this was enacted, the first offense of having one was a $90 fine. Now it's a Class A misdemeanor if you are eligible to have a firearm, and a felony if you are not. If you are guilty of a family violence crime, that disqualifies you from having a firearm completely. And they define family violence crime as a crime other than delinquent act that involves an act of family violence to a family or household member, and does not include parents disciplining children unless it becomes abuse, and excludes verbal abuse or arguments unless there is a present danger or likelihood of violence, which I'm sure will not be abused at all. They thankfully updated their storage of firearms in vehicles or snowmobiles so that it applies to pistols or long guns, and they clarified that if you leave a flintlock with priming powder in the pan, that's a crime. Glad they could get that in there. You also must have a firearm permit in order to purchase body armor of any kind, and the body armor must be transferred in person. So you can meet in a back alley to transfer body armor as long as you have a permit and it pleases the crown, but you can't order it off of Amazon. And finally, they increased the penalty for failing to report a lost or stolen firearm within 72 hours, raising it from a $90 fine to a Class A misdemeanor, so you can suffer more after already being a victim. That's all I have for today. Let me know if you are in Connecticut and what you think of the new laws. There were other stricter portions from the proposed bill that were removed and were crazy, such as holding you responsible if someone accesses your firearms after breaking into your home. That was removed, but this bill is still awful. The Gary Gunderson Discord is now public, so be sure to join in the conversations there. Link in the description and should be floating above. Please don't forget to support the channel by subscribing, liking the video, and sharing with others. You can also support me via Patreon and get some perks there as well. Thanks for watching.